ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूप साग्रजाता सहगणा रघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदा सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामो राम रामो हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. I'm going to ask your excuse for a minute. I'll just join you all back in exactly a minute's time. Hare Krishna. Today is I think a technologically very challenged day because somehow my iPad just stopped working for some strange reason, and my laptop is behaving very strangely also. So whatever it is, let's just hope we can pull through today's session. And interestingly, today's session is also uh, very important from a spiritualist perspective because it is going to really help us understand the effects of uh, the 10 benefits of practicing spirituality. I'll tell you a benefit from a realistic point of view, something that happened to me a couple of years back, so you will understand. And it's in the context of today's chaos technologically. About 7 years back, probably, I was scheduled to give a session, like a massive festival where about 1,000 people are waiting, in the audience, between 1,000 to 2,000 people. Big auditorium, and I was on the stage setting up my laptop, and the screen was closed. So we were behind the curtains setting up the laptop, and I was just going to about to start making the presentation, and the MC had already announced, "Welcome to everyone," and it's just going to start. 1 minute before the screen was going to be opened up, A friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, he was helping me set up the whole thing. He dropped a glass of hot water on my laptop. And instantly the laptop crashed. It just stopped working, obviously, And we were panicking because my presentation was there. I didn't have any other notes. Everything was on the laptop only. And I had to make a 1 hour very high impact presentation to a completely new audience. And we were, turning the laptop upside down, trying to remove all the water and whatnot in that 1 minute. And then I realized this is not going to happen. This is not going to work out. I just told them, open the screen. We'll see whatever happens, happens. And they're like, 1 hour extempo presentation without anything with me, And after the session, as I was meeting people, of course, I explained to them that there is a chaos. I explained to them that I don't have any presentation anymore. And I explained to them that there was a mishap. But I continued the session. At the end of the session, so many people walked up to me and they said, it was a fantastic session, very, very nice. I don't even know what I spoke that day, Somehow people happen to love what I spoke. And then most importantly, after the whole session got over, this friend of mine walked up to me and he said, thank you for not shouting at me. He said, thank you for not getting angry on me. He said, I have no idea how you managed not to get angry. It's a MacBook Air. It was a pretty costly laptop, basically. I realized that there is absolutely no point in getting angry on anyone. That's something has to happen, it will happen, right? And that's when I understood that practicing spirituality has its benefits in many ways, more subtle than gross. And in situations like this, where you have no control, where you have absolutely, no way to manage things in any other way, that's when you realize how beneficial practicing spirituality is. So, in that context, we'll discuss today's words. This is a very, very powerful words from the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. And this is Arjun asking Krishna a question. And as an answer to Arjun's question, Krishna is explaining to Arjun the 10 benefits of practicing spirituality. So if anyone wants to know what will I get by becoming a devotee, what will I get by practicing spirituality, what will I get by chanting and doing sadhana and practicing Krishna consciousness, what will I get? This is the answer. There are 10, not 1, not 2, 10 benefits of practicing spirituality. And between today's session and the next session, we're going to really focus on what Krishna is trying to address as a result of answering Arjun's question. Of course, today I would like to start by focusing on what question Arjun asked. Because the most amazing thing is, sometimes understanding the question is more difficult than understanding the answer. And for a person who is as intelligent as Arjun, understanding his question only is impossible. So let's begin the verse and let's discuss Arjun's question. Arjuna uvacha sthita pragya saka bhasha samadhi stasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. So Arjun is a very wonderful soul, and in his inquisitiveness, he's asking this question. So far, if you understand the context of the second chapter of the Gita, so far what we have been speaking about, Krishna began the second chapter by talking about how we are not the spirit, so we are not the body, a spirit soul. And then he went on to explain the characteristics of the spirit soul. And then he went on to explain the idea of karma kand, jnana kand, and Upasana Kanda. And then he brought us to the understanding of Karma Yoga, how important it is to become a Karma Yogi. And now, when Krishna is explaining to Arjun to grow, to elevate in his consciousness, to become a self-realized soul, Arjun has a doubt. His doubt is, Sthita Pragyasa Ka Bhasha. His doubt is, what is a symptom of a self-realized soul? So, the word Sthita Pragya, it is referring, or it is talking about, is used for someone who is a self-realized soul. What are the symptoms of a self-realized soul? That's what Arjun's question is. Interestingly, as I'm going to tell you these 10 symptoms of a self-realized soul that Krishna is going to be discussing, you might say, I don't even have one of them. I'm very far from being self-realized. We might even feel depressed, saying that, oh my God, I'm so far away for me to go on this journey. The problem with conditioned souls like all of us, the biggest problem is that we tend to either underestimate ourselves or we tend to overestimate ourselves. Here, Arjun is trying to get a very clear picture of what really he needs to learn, or rather he needs to do from a spiritual point of view. So all those who practice spirituality, they either overestimate or underestimate themselves. Some people feel that I don't need the lecture at all. And some people feel that I'm so fallen that no matter how many lectures you give, no use. Nobody can help me. Nobody can save me. And other people feel that I know everything, so I don't need these lectures. I'm already self-realized. I'm almost there, So we should know where we actually stand. And we should know where we want to go, where we want to reach. And that is why the idea of understanding these steps towards self-realization is important. That is why it is important to understand what are the step-by-step process that we need to undertake to become a fully self-realized soul. So, this idea of self-realization, or rather what Arjun calls it as Sthita Pragya. So Arjun's question is, Sthita Pragyasya Ka Bhasha. Sthita Pragyasya Ka Bhasha. Bhasha means what? The word Bhasha means language. So Arjun's technical question essentially is, what are the symptoms of a self-realized soul and how does he speak? Samadhi Stasya Keshava, which means what are the symptoms of one who is in Samadhi or trance? So that's Arjun's question. Now, when people like us, we hear the word Samadhi, what comes in our mind? Usually, you immediately remember some saint who has taken Samadhi, right? Somebody, like, there are many saints in India who have taken live Samadhi, Jivan Samadhi, they are called. Like, for example, Gyaneshwar Maharaj, he took live Samadhi. And then there are many other Samadhis which are powerful Samadhis of Acharyas that still have impact in society. Like, for example, in Karnataka, there is a place known as Mantralaya. And in Mantralaya, there is a Samadhi of Raghavendra Swami. And I mean, that is a powerful place. So there was a point where the British Empire, they wanted to destroy the Samadhi because they wanted to build something there. So people around that village, They told the British officers, you can't destroy the Samadhi unless you take permission of Raghavendra Swami. The British officers, uh, they said, please take us to Raghavendra Swami. You want to take his permission? They said he's inside the Samadhi. Now, the British officers are totally bewildered. How can you take permission from a dead person? They just going to understand what they're talking about. So, the British officer, ultimately, because there was so much pressure from the mob over there, he had to walk into the Samadhi and ask for permission. So he walked into the temple to where the Samadhi was, and he didn't know what he was doing. He walked in and loudly he said, "Can I have permission to destroy the Samadhi?" And he heard Raghavendra Swami saying no. Permission denied. And this British officer ran away from there, never ever came back in that area. Because he actually heard Raghavendra Swami speaking to him, So, now imagine when we are talking about this level of absorption and the idea of Samadhi, and here Arjuna is asking, using that same word, Samadhi. So it obviously makes us think that what exactly is Samadhi in Arjun's context. So Arjun is asking that, so here the word Samadhi refers to absorption. To get fully absorbed in Krishna. So Arjun is asking Krishna, what is the absorption of a Siddha Prajna? And how does he speak? What is the Siddha Prajna absorbed in? Now, this teaches us a very important lesson in life and a very powerful understanding also. All of us, we all go through problems in our life. We all go through different situations in our personal lives. But how do you face that situation depends on what you're absorbed in. There are a lot of people who are absorbed in money. For them, the solution to all problems comes with money. There are a lot of people that are absorbed in knowledge. For them, solution comes through knowledge. For a lot of people, they are absorbed in networking. The solution comes through talking to people, basically. So depending on what you're absorbed in, you will find solutions to problems of life in that absorption, in whatever thing you're absorbed in, basically. So when a Sthita Prajna, so when a great devotee like Arjuna is talking about absorption, he's talking about spiritual absorption. Just like when an airplane takes off. Now, as the airplane is running on the runway, you look around, the buildings appear pretty huge. You might find skyscrapers all around, massive structures. But as the plane flies higher and higher and higher and higher in the air, the buildings appear like matchboxes. They're so small, they're so tiny, so insignificant, isn't it? Similarly, when we are absorbed in the problem itself, when we are very much absorbed in that particular situation, the problem seems daunting, powerful. It seems to be overpowering us. But a Siddha Prajna is someone who looks at it from a higher perspective, looks at life from a higher perspective. He is in Samadhi, he is in trance. Because a Siddha Prajna looks at life from a higher perspective, the problems of life appear very different. And of course, it's not that when you become a Siddha Prajna, problems won't be there. Problems will be there. But what you get the strength to is first, see the problem from a higher perspective. And second, not be part of the problem. So usually when we are all stuck up, very caught up in the problems of life, we can't look at it from a different perspective. Only a person who can step away, only a person who can pull away can actually see the problem in a very different light. And that is the result of being absorbed in Krishna. So, the idea of samadhi is also connected with um, being unaffected by this world. Most of us, our life passes away in what others comment about us. If people comment favorably, uh, then we feel happy. And when people comment unfavorably, we feel sad, we feel dejected. So, but either ways, positive or negative, we get affected very strongly. But someone who is in samadhi is unaffected by what people say and what people do, what people are trying to do to you. You think Raghavendra Swami is bothered about somebody who is outside his samadhi trying to pass some comment on him? No, they are in a higher level of consciousness. They are least bothered. The idea of samadhi is to reach a stage of trance where you are no more bothered about the praise and blame of this world. You are no more bothered about the good and bad in this world. You're no more bothered about insult and appreciation in this world, joy and sorrow in this world. And that's the idea of samadhi. So every professional in this world can be in samadhi if they learn the art of focusing on his work with connection to Krishna. And that is a powerful way of reaching the stage of samadhi. So Arjun's question is, Sthita pragyasa ka bhasha, samadhi stasya keshava, sthitadi kim prabhasheta, kim asita vrajeta kim. So his question is, sthitadi kim prabhasheta. So ka bhasha means which language he is speaking, how does he speak? Second, he is saying, sthitadi kim prabhasheta, kim asita prajeta kim. Sthitadi kim prabhasheta means which language does he speak? Kim asita, the word asita means sit down. Asan, right? Asan means seat. And asita means sit. His question is, how does a self-realized soul sit? And his last question is, vrajeta kim. Vrajeta kim means, how does he walk? These are Arjun's questions in essence. Look at the set of questions that Arjun is asking Krishna. What are the symptoms of a self-realized soul? How does he speak? What is his absorption? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? 6 questions, basically. So this is verse number 54 of the second chapter. And the answer to these 6 questions is the remaining of the chapter, verse number 55 to 72. Krishna is giving an answer to these 6 questions of Arjun asked in one verse. So, as I said, if you remember, to understand the question only is so complex. Forget the answer, understanding the answer to that question. So let's just look at Arjun's question. This is so amazing, right? So first question of Arjun is, my dear Lord, what are the symptoms of a Sthita Prajna, a self-realized soul, a perfect man in self-realization and God realization? How does one recognize him? Suppose a self-realized soul walks in front of you. How do you recognize him or her? What if one of your family members is a self-realized soul? Now imagine, tomorrow morning you get up and one of your family members suddenly becomes a self-realized soul. How will you even recognize he's self-realized or she is self-realized? We might just consider them to be ordinary. So Arjun's question is very relevant. Srila Prabhupada who's the founder of ISKCON, he would say that everyone in this world is known by his symptoms. A learned person is known by his symptoms. Anyone can say, I'm learned. Ask them to open their mouth. And that's when you understand whether the person is actually learned or not, isn't it? As soon as as a learned person opens his mouth, people understand immediately, right? A diseased person is known by symptoms. I mean, by now, everybody has by-hearted all the symptoms of corona. Practically every single speaker in the world is announcing again and again all the symptoms of a sick person. There are some people who get sick at a particular time of the day. When I was staying in the temple, we had a very interesting sickness called morning program sickness, which means, so we had a very strict schedule of people having to attend Mangalarti. It's at 5 o'clock in the morning. So you have to mark attendance by 4:57. And if you don't mark attendance by 4:57, you have to write the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 108 times. You have to take roughly about 2 hours to write, So it has a compulsory thing. And the only time you are excused from not attending the morning program is if you're sick. And invariably there will be some set of people exactly at 5 o'clock in the morning, they would fall sick. Some strange disease, And the rest of the day they're fine. The rest of the day they're roaming around and absolutely fine. So there was a symptom called morning program sickness, basically. Like small kids, exactly before school. Before the school bus comes, stomach starts paining. So there are so many such symptoms. So a rich person, so a learned person, as soon as he speaks, the symptoms of a sick person, there is a particular symptom, and a rich person, immediately you understand a person is rich just by seeing what kind of brands he wears, what kind of cars he roams around in, what kind of phones he carries, and it's very, very obvious the symptoms of a rich person. Obviously, one of the symptoms of rich people is also a little bit of arrogance. Basically, he was a very rich guy who was passing by a street, and on his way, he saw two very poor people on the side of the road. They were eating grass. They were so poor, they couldn't afford anything. They were eating grass. So this man stopped there, stopped his car. He told those two poor people, he said, come with me. I'll give you all a job. The two poor people very gratefully, they got into his car. This fellow took them to his house and, he asked them to get off. And he showed a garden, massive garden. And he told them, you stay here and eat all the grass. Because he had to, get the grass cut, basically. He thought, anyway, they're eating grass there, might as well eat grass here, Symptoms. It's all symptoms of, different people, right? Just by looking at a person, you come to know what is the symptom of that person. Looking at the behavior, looking at some of the characteristics of a person, you can easily come to know, isn't it? So Arjun's first question was, Sthita Prakya Saka Bhasha. What are the symptoms of a self-realization? Arjun's question was, his second question was, how does he speak? So now, speech is a very important quality of a human being, isn't it? When you speak, you actually reveal your culture to a great extent. In places like Mumbai and many of the metros in the world today, people's languages are so pathetic, right? Really pathetic. I mean, that actually reveals the culture of the person, right? So I remember a few years back, a young boy came to meet us. And he told us something that we didn't understand in the beginning. And then when we understood what he said, we were shocked. So he just came, he said, he said, Prabhu, my father is off today. So now, if somebody comes and tells you my father is off, what do you understand? So we didn't understand what he's saying. And then later we came to know his father died today. So he's saying my father went off today. What a harsh way of saying it. It's like, somebody went and switched off the light, current went off. He's saying my father went off. So usually from the language that we speak, a lot of our conditionings are visible. A lot of how we think, how we process information, what is our culture, a lot of it is very visible. Some of what we speak is very conditioned. Conditioned speech is still understandable. But there is something called intentional speech, which is even worse. Intentional speech essentially means it is spoken with an intention which to hurt others. And sometimes we do intentional speech where we specifically intend to hurt the person. Normally, we do conditioned speech. That means, in our speech only some kind of insensitiveness is there. But that's still understandable. But when we do intentional speech, that's what really becomes painful. So Srila Prabhupada would always say that a fool goes undetected till he opens his mouth. I was once in Rishikesh, and I was serving my teacher, and we were there for a couple of days. And one particular day, we were staying in somebody's house for that 3-4 days. And a very famous actor happened to come there to visit that person, a very famous Bollywood actor. And everyone was, going gaga over him, and he came to sit with us to eat dinner. We didn't know him much, but obviously we had heard of him. But the moment he opened his mouth, oh my God, he was a very different personality. Looked very handsome and looked very sophisticated and looked very, cultured and very, very learned and all that. But the moment he opened his mouth, oh my God, it was pathetic. The kind of words he was using and the kind of language he was using. Very ugly mindset it reflected, and a very, very strong conditioning it reflected, basically. So, speech is very important quality of a human being, and we should try to adopt and speak properly in a way that is uplifting, in a way that is encouraging, in a way that is nice to others. Arjun is actually not talking about this. He's not talking about this kind of speech that we're talking about. But it is important to understand the importance of speech also. There's a very beautiful verse in the Niti Shastra. It says, Samsare katu vrikshasya dvifale maduropame subhashitam cha shushvadu sangatir sajjaner jane. This verse says, this world is like a bitter tree, full of bitterness. This world is like a bitter tree full of bitterness. But on this tree which is full of bitterness, this world, on this tree that is full of bitterness, there are 2 sweet fruits. Now imagine a neem tree on which 2 mango fruits are hanging. Very strange combination, isn't it? You will never find something sweet hanging from a neem tree, which is so bitter. But this world has two sweet fruits, though it is so full of bitterness. And it says, this verse says, one is sweet speech, kind words. Um, now that we experience so much bitterness in this world, um, and we make it worse by uttering bitter words. Already we're going through bitterness, and if someone makes it worse by adding bitter words, nothing worse than that. So sweet speech is so important. Some people say, I can't be sweet, I'm straightforward. It's fine to be straightforward, but it doesn't mean you hurt others. There's a big difference between being frank and being blunt. A lot of us, when we use intentional speech to hurt others, it's really bad. So the first sweet thing in this world is sweet speech. That means all of us should try to speak sweetly to everyone around us. And the second thing that is there in this world, which is sweet, is the association of saintly people. These are the only two sweet things in this very, very bitter world. So here, Arjun is talking about the idea of how does Siddha Pragya speak? How does he speak? What is his speech? So here, speech is not literally referring to speech. Speech here refers to response. So if somebody does something to you, how do you respond? If somebody says something to you, how do you respond? So by speaking, when someone says, how beautiful you are, then we say, you're impressed. Somebody says, oh, beautiful you are. You are the only one who understands the reality. We get so happy and so inspired when somebody praises us, right? We just feel that person perfectly understands us. Though everything that person might be saying is a lie. But still, somehow we feel inspired, when somebody praises us. And if somebody abuses us, calls us all kinds of names, we are ready to retaliate with a sword in our hand, ready to slash that person. Isn't it? Speech symbolizes response. So someone who does not glorify and does not criticize acts very neutral. That's even worse. At least criticize me. At least speak something bad or speak something good. Don't do nothing. So when someone praises us, we feel very happy. And when someone criticizes us, we give it back to him. But when someone is neutral, how do you deal with such a person? How should I change that person's perspective about me? And how affected are we? So if you want to correct someone, if you want to really irritate someone, correct someone, or irritate someone, there is nothing better than not responding. If you want to really irritate someone, don't respond. Even better, send a smiley. And that person is asking a very serious question. Send a smiley. You don't know what it means, right? You just don't know what to make out of it. It's a neutral response. Neutral response gets more irritating than a praise or a blame. Somebody insulting you or somebody praising you, at least that is clear. But somebody neutral, you don't know how to handle it, basically. So here, the Arjun's question is, when a Sthita Pragya is praised, how does he behave? When a Sthita Pragya is criticized, how does he behave? How does he respond? When a Sthita Pragya is an object of neutral dealing, how does he respond? This is Arjun's question. So now, I'm just trying to explain to you what is the question first before we get into the answer, right? Because if you don't understand the question only, how will you understand the answer better? The third question Arjuna is asking is, how does a Sthitapragya sit? Kim asita? What do you mean by sit? Does he sit on a sofa? Does he sit on a chair? Does he sit on a floor? Does he sit on Padmasan, Sukhasan, Mayurasan? What exactly? How does he sit? What does it mean? Especially today is International Yoga Day. Very relevant question in this context. So, is this what Arjuna is meaning when he's asking this question? Kim asita? How does he sit? Does he sit with a back support, or does he not use a back support? Does he sit with his back erect? What exactly is this idea of Kim asita? So, what does sit mean? For us, sit means doing nothing, isn't it? I'm sitting in a class. What does it mean? I'm doing nothing. For a lot of people, that's what it means, I'm just doing nothing, basically. So, like for example, I remember in my college days, there used to be some seats in the college, very famous seats. And those seats will always be warm. Why? There are many people sitting there doing nothing, basically. We just, used to call it college ka katta. There used to be some seats were like always filled with people who had nothing to do in life, except go and sit there and warm those seats, basically. So now, what does sitting here mean? What do you mean by Kim Asita? What does Arjuna mean by sitting? Sitting means doing nothing, which means the senses are inactive. There were three frogs that were sitting on a well, on the parapet of the well. And one of them decided to jump in. So the question is, how many remained on top? The answer is all three. Because he only decided to jump. He never jumped. A lot of us, this is what we do in life. We decide, I will do this. That's it. We don't do anything about it. I remember a couple of years back, when I think my fourth or fifth book got published, and I went to a very close friend of mine and I went to give him this book, saying that here is a new book that has come out, And this person is a super intellectual. There's nothing in this world he doesn't know. He can speak on any topic. Give him a copy of the book. Looked at the book back and forth. He said, "You seem to be writing a lot." And he's telling me, I also wanted to write someday. I thought I write books. But I somehow never picked up the paper and pen and never ended up writing anything. So a lot of people in this world want to do things and they are very serious about it. Like for example, somebody wants to get into really intense fitness. They watch videos on fitness on YouTube and Insta and all that. Really preparing their mind every day, They know exactly how many calories to eat. They know every single thing on fitness. The only thing they won't do is get up and go for a jog. The only thing they won't do is get up and exercise. Other than that, everything else they'll do. This is what is called as sitting. Sitting essentially means doing nothing, being inactive. So sitting here means being inactive. So Arjun's question is, how does a Sthitapragya sit? Means, how does he not use his senses? Ideally, when we sit, we don't use our senses. So his question is, how does a Sthitapragya not use his senses? And then Arjun's next question, Vrajeta kim? How does a self-realized person walk? So this may sound like a very dumb question, you know. What do you mean by walk? How does a Siddhapragya walk mean? He walks on two legs. Well, how else he'll walk? He's not going to walk on his head. He's not going to walk on his hands. He's not going to walk on his tummy. He'll naturally walk on his legs only. So what does Arjun mean by how does a Siddhapragya walk, basically? So the question is not a dumb question. Each question that Arjun is asking has a deep meaning behind it. Walking is an action. So it involves using one's senses. So here, Arjun's question is, how does a Siddhapragya use his senses? So the previous question is, sitting means not using his senses, and walking means using his senses. So Arjun is asking, how does a Siddhapragya not use his senses? And how does a Siddhapragya use his senses, basically? So these are the questions that Arjun has asked. First, what are the symptoms of a Siddhapragya? Second, how does he speak? It means how does he respond to success? How does he respond to failures? How does he respond to criticism? How does he respond to praise? And how does he respond to neutrality? And then Arjun's next question is, how does he sit? Which means, how does he not use his senses? And then Arjun is asking, how does he walk? Which means, how does he engage his senses, use his senses? Now, Krishna, after hearing Arjun's questions, he will start answering one by one the answers to Arjun's questions. It will be a series, a discussion, basically. And then, as an answer to Arjun's question, he's saying there are 10 attributes or symptoms of a Siddhapragya. Now, obviously, Siddhapragya is a long way for us. It's a long way. So the word pragya comes from the word agya. Gya means knowledge. Agya means no knowledge. And pragya means expert in knowledge. So here, when Arjuna is asking Sthita Pragya, he is not talking about us, definitely. Why is not talking about us? Because we are not Pragya, we are Agya. We are in the stage of ignorance, right? So our journey is from Agya to Pragya. We are right now stably situated in ignorance. Stably ignorant people we are. And we need to reach the stage of stably being knowledgeable. Those who are Agya, they are so firmly rooted in ignorance that they have decided we will not change. We call these people as HNS category. HNS category means hum nahi sudhrenge category. These people have decided, hell or high water, I will not change. No matter which government comes, no matter who is there in my life, no matter how much knowledge I gain, no matter how much this fellow shouts in his Gita classes, I will not change. So that determination to not change is known as Agya. The determination is almost like a sankalpa. Kuch bhi, do anything, but you can't make me change. So that's the stubbornness at which we are right now in. That's the stubbornness with which we live our lives. And that's the stubbornness with which we approach knowledge also. So it's very, very clear that we will not improve. And that firm rootedness in ignorance is known as Sthita Agya. And our journey is from being Sthita Agya to becoming Sthita Pragya. Of course, it's a long journey. We shouldn't get depressed, thinking that impossible, I will not get there at all. That's not how we should think. And the purpose of Krishna telling all these 10 things that we're going to be looking from the next session is not to scare us, not to tell us that, oh, this is not for you, just hear and go away. That's not the purpose for which Krishna is telling us. Krishna is giving us an inspiration. This is what will happen to you if you embark on this path of becoming a Siddha Pragya. Every small bit that we rise in this journey is a good beginning. Every small bit that we progress on this journey will take us to the destination. Because in the journey, there is a component of the destination. And in the destination, there is a component of the journey. As important as the destination is, that important the journey is. So, I welcome all of you all on the journey of from Sthita Agya to Asthita Pragya. Hare Krishna. I'll stop here. Any questions, comments, discussions, please? I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to see hand raises. Gaurav, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, two things. One, I want to share something that happened today. And so what happened was I was walking in the park and because it rained and it was very slippery. And I was listening to Srila Prabhupada's chanting on Apple Music. And on the next round, I found that, it was not slippery from where I slipped last time. Without realizing that, God has removed my obstacle. In the next round, I searched where I slipped and why I did not slip. After 3-4 rounds, I slipped again. And then I learned the lesson that what's important is to just rise above. God has cleared the path. Krishna has made a better way and move on. And then I obviously did more rounds. That's one thing which you just said in the beginning of the session. So I thought of sharing as human beings.
Thank you.
And second, Prabhuji, so when we say that, God has his own course, right? Krishna has devised a path for all of us. Yet we discuss about being a Karam Yogi and, somebody who is aware, etc. Isn't it contradictory because we have to be Karam Yogis at the same time it's already devised for us?
Can you repeat the last sentence again?
Yes. So isn't it contradictory that, while we are working towards being a Karam Yogi and being a better person towards Krishna, towards consciousness, at the same time, it is also decided, our destiny and our way is already decided by Krishna.
So, yes, both are right. While the idea of destiny is true, that means a lot of what is going to happen in our life is already predestined. But its destiny is more or less like a like just to give you an example, a component of our destiny is fixed, and there's a component of our destiny that is variable. Like, say, for example, you purchase a ticket to go to Bangalore. You go to the airport, get your boarding pass, get into the plane. Now you are destined to reach Bangalore, right? I mean, if you sit in the plane and then start jumping, saying that I want to go to Delhi, nothing doing.
Right.
Bangalore only. That part is destined. But what you do in that airplane is not destined. If you do some real mess in the airplane, then when you get off, you will not reach your prescribed destination. You will go to some other destination. They will take you to jail or they'll take you somewhere else, isn't it? So a component of our destiny is predestined based on our past karma. But there's a component of our destiny which is very much free will, which is in our hands. So while we have no control over a portion of our destiny, we do have control over a certain portion of our destiny. And that's where we need to work.
Thanks, Prabhuji. Explains. Yeah.
Ch2.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I had a doubt about the two sweet fruits on the bitter tree. The first one being sweet speech. So in some Sanskrit subhashits from my school, I remember, and also in real life, we come across many masters who are very firm when they speak. I'm not saying that they're abusive, but they're like very rough And sometimes they might use some expletives here and there, depending upon their. It's just a matter of how they express their affection, but it's not necessarily sweet speech. And there's a Sanskrit Subhashit which says Vajradapi Kathorani Mruduni Kusumadapi. That means, harder than diamond or thunder and softer than a flower as a characteristic of a good person. And there's one more which says, great people are like coconut, very rough from outside, but soft inside. So how do we blend these two together? The concept of sweet, or how do we interpret perhaps sweet speech along with this characteristic of certain great people that we see? Thank you.
See, when you are doing the role of a teacher, that role is very different from regular life. Very different from the life of a corporate employee. The role of a teacher is molding, is shaping people's lives. But regular people, we are not necessarily always shaping people's lives. We are doing our jobs, we are doing whatever we need to do, and not necessarily playing roles of teachers. So when we play certain roles in our life, those roles need a certain type of sternness. But that certain type of sternness is specifically for that role. But that's not the character of a person. The sternest of teachers, by nature, they are very soft and kind. They're very gentle, on a very personal level. But yes, as a service, they have to act stern. As a service, they have to, be harsh. As a service, they may have to be strict. And once the service is over, they go back to their soft, delicate side. I know some people who are really, really tough, like coconuts on the outside and very soft inside. But that toughness outside is usually to teach somebody a lesson. Usually they are in the mood of teaching everybody a lesson, basically. So when you don the role of a teacher, you end up being a little over stern sometimes. But I think in general in life, when you are no more a teacher and you're just an ordinary person, sweetness is absolutely important.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
I entirely agree with you on the statement that you made. We don't need to bother about what other people think about us. We don't need education. It's like one of the Hindi movie songs, "Log kya kahenge ya log kya sochenge." That's not our headache. That is their problem. At least give them an opportunity to think or let them an opportunity to say. That's what my statement always is. But another thing which you said, that if somebody doesn't answer, that really irritates us. I do entirely agree with you. If you ask a question, especially for us with patients, when they don't answer or they don't say anything, you feel like shaking them up. Anyway, but the fact is that where some people are so this thing, they keep on keeping quiet, and then they really don't come out with something, and they come up with something else. But the fact is that if you keep quiet or they keep quiet, it irritates me. But if I send them a smiley, won't it agitate them? That's
Yeah, absolutely.
But dealing with people is my job, and the best part.
That's why. That's why Arjun's question is so relevant, right? How do you deal with neutral people?
The best part is we keep our patients' mouth open. We don't allow them to speak.
Yeah. So we'll get an answer from Krishna very soon. The next session.
You are our Krishna, so we expect it from you.
So,
thank you.
In my understanding, it's Desh Kalpatra. It's according to time, place, circumstance. Not everyone, not all dealings have a similar, way of answering or, taking care. Because a lot of it is intentional based. Because many people, though they might just keep their mouth shut, they may not answer or they may not respond, their intention is not wrong. They may have a story of their own because of which they behave in a particular way, and we don't understand what that story is. And I mean, it might be even embarrassing for them to even share that story sometimes. So I would always say that whenever you deal with human beings, it's good to give benefit of doubt. It's good to give benefit of doubt and hope that they have the best intentions. Because the day you doubt people's intentions, the relationship is over officially. The day you doubt somebody's intention, then there's no point even talking to that person, right? People's lives and situations are very strange. They're very strange, and the stories that they carry are so traumatic sometimes and so intense sometimes that it's not easy for us to fathom what they're going through and why they're behaving in a particular way. There's a very interesting book I read many years back, which talks about geniuses and why they behave strangely. These are people who have IQ levels 150 to 200, way above genius level. But many of them behave very strangely. We call them eccentrics, right? Now, usually what happens is a lot of these geniuses, they come from backgrounds where they have not got warmth and culture, and love. So all they have invested is in their intellectual development. They have not invested in their emotional development, and they just don't know how to behave in public. They just don't know how to behave, normally in a social setting. And we get offended thinking that why is this person behaving like this? But we don't know what that person's life has been, which has led him or her to be so eccentric, basically. So at least this is my little understanding of human psychology. That
Sir, amazing response to this. Thank you very much. It's opened my eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sunita,
no, I was just going to actually say something about what Dr. Mohanji was saying, and really it was that we talk about different situations, and I firmly believe in not reacting to situations but responding to situations, and that it's more of emotional intelligence being used there rather than emotional outbursts. So I feel that somehow that phrase has always stayed with me, and I always like to think that I'm trying to make attempts to follow that rather than think of explain, don't explode. Just explain your situation and get that. And I agree totally with what you've just said. And you don't know where that person is coming from, and we're so quick to judge. We're so quick to understand that this is what we know, but we don't know where the other person is coming from. So I think we tend to be judgmental too soon, and that's probably something we need to be aware of as we carry our daily lives. So I just wanted to share, and I agree with what you just said.
I agree with you, madam. We judge the book by its cover and without going through the whole thing. Very true. And moreover, what you said was very, very true of listening and hearing. When you hear someone and reply, and listen to someone, that you reply after some time understanding and digesting the thing. And that's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's an action and not just a reaction. Very true. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, all of you all, for being here and so enthusiastically participating in the Gita classes. And we'll continue next week. We will continue the discussion, Krishna's replies to Arjun's 6 questions in the form of the 10 qualities, 10 benefits of practicing spiritual life.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.